The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, and it changed everything. Park was sitting in her office in Seoul when her screen lit up with an urgent alert. She was 53 years old, with gray hair that she kept short and practical, and eyes that had seen too much of both war and peace. For 20 years, she had served as Earth's top diplomat, solving problems that others said could not be solved. But this message was different from anything she had ever received. It came from space, from beings that were not human. The message was simple. The Galactic Council requested the presence of a human representative. They provided coordinates to a station far beyond Earth's solar system. They gave humanity 30 days to respond. The world went crazy. Some people celebrated, others panicked. Religious leaders argued about what this meant for their beliefs. Scientists worked day and night to understand the technology that had delivered the message. Politicians fought over who should make the journey. In the end, they chose. She had a reputation for staying calm when everything around her was falling apart. She never raised her voice. She never lost her temper. And most importantly, she never gave up. "You understand what this means," said President Han, a tired woman who had aged 10 years in the past month. "You will be speaking for all of humanity, 8 billion people, everything we have ever been, everything we hope to become." Nodded slowly, "I understand. If you fail, if you say the wrong thing, it could mean the end of our species." "Then I will not fail." She was given a ship called the Dawn's Hope. It was the fastest vessel humanity had ever built, capable of traveling faster than light using technology that scientists still did not fully understand. They had discovered it by accident just 30 years ago, when an experiment went wrong in the best possible way. Since then, humanity had spread to a dozen worlds, built stations in the darkness between stars, and begun to believe that they belonged in the universe. Now they would find out if they were right. His only companion on the journey was a young man named Lee. He was 26 years old, fresh from the military academy, with the kind of eager energy that made feel very old. He had volunteered for the mission without hesitation, even though everyone told him it was suicide. "Why did you volunteer?" asked him on the third day of their journey. "Thought about it for a moment. Because someone had to, and because I wanted to see what was out there. I have spent my whole life looking at the stars and wondering. Now I get to find out." "You might not like what you find." "Maybe not, but I would rather know than spend my life wondering." Smiled at that. She remembered being young and brave and foolish. It seemed like a very long time ago. The journey took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of silence and darkness and the strange humming of the ship's engines. Spent the time reading everything humanity knew about the aliens who had contacted them. It was not much. They knew that there were multiple species. They knew that the Galactic Council had existed for thousands of years. They knew that humanity was very, very young compared to the civilizations that ruled the stars. What they did not know was whether these aliens were friends or enemies. When the council station appeared on their screens, gasped out loud. Said nothing, but her hands tightened on the arms of her chair. The station was the size of a moon. It hung in space like a jewel, glowing with lights of every color. Ships moved around it like insects around a flower, thousands of them, each one different from the others. Some were sleek and silver. Others were organic, looking more grown than built. Some seemed to be made of pure light. And the Dawn's Hope, humanity's finest achievement, looked like a toy compared to the smallest of them. "They have been doing this for a very long time," said quietly. "Yes," agreed, his voice was small, "they have." They were guided to a docking port by a voice that spoke perfect Korean, even though it clearly was not human. The technology required to do that was beyond anything could imagine. These beings could translate any language instantly. What else could they do? The air inside the station smelled strange. Not bad exactly, but different, like nothing had ever smelled before. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's, making her feel like she might float away if she was not careful. The walls were made of a material that seemed to shift and change color as she watched. They were met by a creature that looked like it was made of glass. It stood 3 meters tall, with a body full of swirling lights. When it spoke, the voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "I am Counselor. I will guide you to the chamber. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not touch anything. Do not make sudden movements. Some species here consider such things to be threats, and they respond to threats with violence." Nodded, understood. They walked for what felt like hours. The station was a maze of corridors and chambers, each one filled with wonders that made heads spin. She saw creatures of every shape and size. Some had too many eyes, others had no eyes at all. Some floated through the air, others crawled on the ceiling. None of them looked even slightly human. And none of them seemed impressed by the two small visitors from Earth. Finally, they reached the council chamber. It was vast, larger than any building had ever seen. 12 pedestals rose from the floor in a semicircle, each one occupied by a being that radiated power and age. These were the rulers of the galaxy, the masters of the stars. They had been traveling between worlds when humans were still living in caves. At the center stood the largest of them all, a creature of crystal and light, ancient beyond measure. "I am High Arbiter," it said, and its voice was like thunder. "I speak for the council. You are the human." Stepped forward. She was aware of how small she must look, how fragile, how weak, but she kept her voice steady. "I am Ambassador Park of Earth. I speak for humanity." "Humanity," repeated as if tasting the word. "We have watched your species for some time. You are young, primitive, fragile." "We are young," agreed, "but we learn quickly." Something that might have been laughter rippled through the chamber. It was not a friendly sound. "All young species say that," said a creature made of clicking shells and too many legs. "Few survive long enough to prove it." Felt tense beside her. She placed a gentle hand on his arm, warning him to stay calm. "We did not come here to boast," she said. "We came to introduce ourselves, to learn about the galaxy we have entered, to seek friendship and trade with those who would have us." "Friendship," said. "An interesting concept. Tell me, human, what do you have to offer? What could a species like yours possibly give to civilizations that have mastered the stars?" Thought about that for a long moment. She thought about Earth, about its wars and its wonders, about the humans who had fought and died and loved and dreamed, about the stubborn, stupid, beautiful persistence of her species. "We have ourselves," she said finally. "Our curiosity, our determination, our refusal to give up even when everything seems hopeless. That is what we offer." The chamber fell silent. The ancient beings on their pedestals looked down at the small human woman who stood before them without fear, and realized with a cold certainty that they were not impressed. They were hungry. The silence in the council chamber lasted only a few seconds, but to it felt like hours. She could feel the weight of 12 ancient gazes pressing down on her, studying her, measuring her. She was a bug under a microscope, an insect that had wandered into the den of giants. High Arbiter moved on his pedestal, his crystalline body catching the light and scattering it into rainbows. "You speak of determination and curiosity. These are not gifts. These are the words of children who do not understand their place in the universe." The creature of clicking shells leaned forward, its many eyes focused on like targeting systems. "I am Prime, voice of the collective. We have studied your species extensively, human. We have watched you for decades. We know everything about you." "Then you know we mean no harm," said carefully. "We know you are weak." Prime made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sounded more like bones breaking. "Your ships are primitive. A child of the could build better vessels from scrap. Your weapons are toys. Your armor is paper. Your technology is thousands of years behind the youngest civilization in this chamber." Another being spoke. This one was different from the others. It had no solid body at all. It was pure light contained in a shell of swirling magnetic fields. I am 7, speaker for the consciousness. We have examined your biology as well, human. It is disappointing. Disappointing how? Asked, forgetting the rule about not speaking. Several heads turned toward him and he took a step back. 7 did not seem offended. You have no natural defenses, no armor, no claws, no venom. You cannot regenerate lost limbs. You cannot survive in vacuum. You cannot go more than a few days without water, a few weeks without food. You require unconsciousness for a third of every day cycle just to function. You are barely a blink. 80 years, perhaps 100 if you are lucky. Some beings in this chamber remember the birth of your species as if it happened yesterday. And you have no psychic abilities, added another creature, this one a towering mass of muscle and scales. No telepathy, no telekinesis, no ability to sense danger or communicate across distances. You are blind and deaf to the deeper currents of the universe. Listen to all of this without expression. Inside, her heart was pounding, but she would not let them see her fear. That was the first rule of diplomacy. Never let them see you sweat. You have made your point, she said when they were finished. We are young, we are weak, we are primitive. What does this have to do with why we were summoned here? High Arbiter raised one of his crystalline limbs. Every species that enters the galactic community must be classified. This classification determines their rights, their territories, their place in the great order of things. It has been this way for 100,000 years. And how are we classified? The Council has deliberated for 3 of your months. We have considered all factors, your biology, your technology, your history, your potential. Paused. Humanity is hereby classified as a Class 7 species. Did not know what that meant, but she could guess from the reaction of the beings around her. Some seemed amused, others looked almost pitiful, none of them looked respectful. What is Class 7? She asked. The lowest classification, Prime clicked eagerly. Reserved for species that cannot protect themselves, species that require supervision. Supervision. Protection, corrected. The galaxy is a dangerous place, human. There are threats you cannot imagine, wars that span centuries, weapons that can destroy stars, species that would see your kind as nothing more than food or slaves. A Class 7 species cannot survive alone. Felt cold, and what does this protection involve? The collective has generously offered to serve as your protectors, announced. Your species will be granted protectorate status under their guidance. Protectorate status, repeated, and what does that mean exactly? Prime answered and could hear the hunger in its voice. It means we will take care of you. Your territory will be reduced to your home system. Your ships will be impounded. Your weapons will be confiscated. Your development will proceed under our direction. You will not expand. You will not build military vessels. You will not contact other species without our permission. You would make us prisoners in our own system. We would make you safe. You should be grateful. Looked around the chamber, at the ancient beings who had decided humanity's fate without asking, at the technology that made Earth's greatest achievements look like children's toys, at the power that surrounded her on every side. She thought about the millions of humans living on colony worlds, building new lives among the stars. She thought about the space stations and the trading posts and the dreams of a species that had finally begun to believe it had a future beyond one small blue planet. And she thought about what would happen to all of that if she agreed. And if we refuse, she asked quietly. The chamber went completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. It was as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Refuse? The voice was strange, confused. No Class 7 species has ever refused. I am asking what happens if we do. Prime rose to its full height, which was considerable. Its shell plates clicked together in a sound like applause. Then you will be made an example. The fleet is already positioned at the edge of your territory. 12,000 warships, the finest vessels in the galaxy. We could reach you in hours. We could turn your planet to glass before your species even understood it was dying. 12,000 warships. Felt the number like a punch to the stomach. Humanity's entire military fleet numbered less than 1,000 ships, and most of those were small patrol vessels designed for pirates and smugglers. You would destroy us for saying no. We would teach the galaxy a lesson. Young species must learn their place. It is the way of things. Prime's many eyes gleamed with something that looked very much like excitement. So choose human, protection or extinction. There are no other options. Turn 2. The young man's face was pale, but his jaw was set. He looked at her and gave the smallest of nods. She turned back to the council. I need to make a call, she said. A call, seemed confused by the word. To my government, to tell them what you have offered. Surely you would not expect me to make such an important decision alone. The council members looked at each other. After a moment nodded. You may have privacy to contact your leaders. You have 1 hour. Bowed her head respectfully. Thank you. She and were led to a small chamber off the main hall. The door closed behind them, and they were alone. Let out a breath he had been holding. Ambassador, what are we going to do? 12,000 ships. We cannot fight that. No one can fight that. Walked to the small window that looked out into space. She could see the lights of alien vessels moving in the darkness. So many ships, so much power. Lieutenant, she said quietly, what time is it on Earth? Checked his device. 1442 Sol time. Nodded slowly. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small communication device. It looked simple, almost primitive compared to the technology around them. But it was connected to something the council did not know about. Something humanity had been building in secret for 5 years. What are you doing? Asked. Smiled. It was not a nice smile. I am going to teach these ancient fools something they have forgotten, she said. I am going to show them what happens when you corner a species that has survived ice ages and plagues and wars that nearly destroyed itself 100 times over. She activated the device. I am going to show them why they should be afraid. Admiral was a man who had seen war up close. He had the scars to prove it. A long white line ran down the left side of his face, from his forehead to his jaw, a gift from the Lunar Rebellion 20 years ago. His left hand was mechanical, a replacement for the one he had lost when his ship was nearly destroyed. He walked with a slight limp that never fully went away. But his mind was sharp, his eyes were clear, and when the message came from Ambassador Park, he was ready. He stood on the bridge of the HSS Unbroken, the flagship of humanity's secret fleet. The ship was massive, the largest vessel humans had ever built, but it was designed to look small. Its hull was covered in panels that absorbed sensor signals. Its engines were muffled to reduce its signature. From the outside, it looked like nothing special. That was the point. Admiral, said Commander Moon, his second in command. The ambassador's signal is coming through. Put it on. His voice filled the bridge. She sounded calm but had known her for 30 years. He could hear the tension underneath. They are going to try to enslave us. 12,000 warships are waiting at the border. If we do not submit, they will destroy Earth. Nodded slowly. I see, and what would you like us to do about that? Execute Protocol Sunrise. The bridge went quiet. Every officer knew what those words meant. They had trained for this moment for 5 years, ever since they first detected alien scouts watching humanity from the edges of their territory. They had known this day would come. They had hoped it would not come so soon. Understood, said, consider it done. He ended the transmission and turned to face his crew. These were good people, the best humanity had to offer. They had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never come home. You heard the ambassador, he said. Battle stations. All ships prepare for combat. Today we show the galaxy what humans are made of. The Unbroken was not alone. Hidden in the darkness of space, spread across a region of asteroid fields and nebulas, were 52 other ships. They were humanity's true fleet, not the small patrol vessels that the Council's spies had counted, not the cargo ships and exploration cruisers that made humanity look weak. These were warships, real warships, built in secret facilities on moons and asteroids that no alien sensor had ever found. Commander Moon relayed the orders. One by one, the ships came online, their engines powered up, their weapons systems activated, their crews prepared for the fight of their lives. Far away at the edge of human space, the fleet waited, 12,000 ships arranged in perfect formation. They were beautiful in a terrible way, sleek vessels of dark chitin, grown rather than built, each one a living thing that served the collective. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could stop anything the galaxy had ever thrown at them. Their commander, Fleet Master, watched the human border with all 16 of its eyes. It was eager for battle. The humans would resist, it was sure of that. They always did, the young species. They always thought they were special. They always learned better. Movement detected, one of its subordinates reported. Human vessels approaching, 53 ships. Made the sound of amusement. 53 against 12,000, they are insane. Perhaps they wish to surrender. No, I can taste their defiance across space itself. They mean to fight. Settled back into its command chair. Good. I was hopping for some entertainment before we burned their world. The human ships emerged from the darkness. They were ugly things by standards, blocky, mechanical, dead metal instead of living tissue. The largest was perhaps a tenth the size of a dreadnought. They looked like toys. Open a channel, ordered. Let us give them one last chance to see reason. The channel opened. On the screen appeared a human face, old, missing an eye that had been replaced with a mechanical implant. Fleet Master felt a small twinge of something that might have been unease. This human did not look afraid. Human Commander said, I am Fleet Master of the Collective. You are outnumbered 12,000 to 53. Surrender now and your death will be quick. Resist, and we will make it last for years. The human smiled. It was not a nice smile. Fleet Master, Admiral said pleasantly. I am Admiral of the Human Defense Force. I have a message from Ambassador Park. She asked me to tell you that humanity declines your generous offer of protection. Then you have chosen death. No, we have chosen to fight. There is a difference. Leaned forward. You have studied us, yes. You know everything about our ships, our weapons, our technology. We do. You have nothing that can harm us. You studied what we wanted you to see. Allow me to show you what you missed. Admiral gave a signal. On every human ship, weapons systems that had been hidden behind false panels came to life. They were not the small laser cannons that alien spies had observed. They were something else entirely. Massive electromagnetic cannons capable of accelerating metal slugs to a significant fraction of the speed of light. The technology was old by human standards. They had been building them for centuries, but the aliens had never seen them used in space. The aliens relied on energy weapons, clean, precise, easy to block with shields. Kinetic weapons were different. You could not block a piece of metal moving at relativistic speeds. You could not shoot it down. You could not deflect it. All you could do was get out of the way. And the fleet was packed so tightly that there was nowhere to go. Fire, Admiral said. The human ships fired as one, 53 vessels, over 200, each one sending a projectile into the heart of the formation. The first dreadnought did not explode. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a massive vessel of living chitin. The next moment there was nothing but fragments and fire. The second followed, then the third, then a dozen more. On the bridge of the Unbroken, Captain Sora commanded the weapons teams. She was young for her rank, only 35, but she had earned her position through skill and courage. Her voice was steady as she called out targets. Focus on their command ships. Take out their coordination. Do not let them organize a response. Lieutenant, her tactical officer, worked his console with desperate speed. They are trying to raise shields, energy barriers. They think it will help. Their shields are designed for energy weapons. Keep firing. The slugs tore through the shields like they were not even there. More ships died. 10, 20, 100. The alien fleet, which had been so perfectly arranged, began to fall apart. Ships tried to scatter. Ships crashed into each other. Ships fired blindly into the darkness, hitting nothing. Fleet Master screamed orders that no one could follow. Its beautiful fleet was being slaughtered by ugly metal projectiles that its sensors could barely track. How was this possible? How could such a primitive species have such devastating weapons? But deep down, in a part of its mind that it did not want to acknowledge, knew the answer. The humans had not invented kinetic weapons for space combat. They had invented them for war against each other. Thousands of years of killing each other had made them very, very good at finding ways to destroy things. And now they were learning what that meant. Retreat, finally screamed. All ships retreat. But for many of them, it was already too late. In the council chamber, chaos had replaced order. The great beings on their pedestals were no longer calm and superior. They were panicking. Screens all around the chamber showed the battle at the human border. They showed ships dying by the hundreds. They showed a fleet that was supposed to be invincible being torn apart by creatures they had dismissed as weak. Prime was making sounds that translator could not fully process. Rage, fear, disbelief, all mixed together into a clicking, screaming mess. "This is impossible," it shrieked. "They are primitives, they have no technology, no power, how are they doing this?" "Their weapons," Seven said, its energy form flickering with distress. "They are using kinetic projectiles, physical objects. We have not seen such weapons in thousands of years. No civilized species uses them." "Because they are barbaric," Prime spat. "Because they are wasteful and crude and impossible to control." "And apparently," said quietly, "because they work." Every eye in the chamber turned to her. She stood exactly where she had been standing before. Her hands were clasped behind her back. Her expression was calm. She looked like a woman watching a mildly interesting news report, not a battle that was reshaping the galaxy. High Arbiter's crystalline form pulsed with colors that human eyes could not fully perceive. "You knew. You planned this." "We suspected something like this would happen. We hoped it would not, but we prepared anyway." 53 ships, the scaled creature growled. "You brought 53 ships against 12,000 and you are winning. How is this possible?" Allowed herself a small smile. "You asked the wrong questions." "What do you mean?" "You studied our ships, our weapons, our technology. You measured our strength by the things you could see and count and analyze." Stepped forward toward the pedestals where the great powers of the galaxy sat in shocked silence. "You never asked the question that actually mattered." "What question?" demanded. "How did we survive?" The chamber went quiet. Even Prime stopped its clicking. Continued, her voice steady and clear. "You called us weak, and by your standards you were right. We have no natural armor, no claws, no venom. We cannot survive in vacuum. We cannot regenerate. We live for barely a century. We are small and soft and fragile." She paused, looking around at the ancient beings who surrounded her. "So how did such a weak species come to rule our planet? How did we survive ice ages that killed creatures 10 times our size? How did we survive predators with teeth and claws that should have wiped us out? How did we survive plagues that killed half our population? How did we survive ourselves, with our wars and our weapons and our endless capacity for destruction?" No one answered. "We survived because we are stubborn," said. "Because we refused to give up. Because every time the universe knocked us down, we got back up. Every time we were told something was impossible, we found a way. Every time we faced extinction, we fought back." She pointed at the screen, showing the burning remains of ships. You saw our weakness as a disadvantage. It is not. It is our greatest strength, because we know we can die. We know how fragile we are. We know that every moment might be our last, so we fight harder, we think faster, we push further. We take risks that species who live for thousands of years would never take. But you are still mortal, Seven said. You still die. Yes, we die, and that is exactly why you should fear us. His voice hardened. A species that has nothing to lose will do things that a species with everything to lose would never dream of. We have spent our entire existence as prey. We have spent our entire history fighting for survival against odds that should have destroyed us 1,000 times over, and we are still here. On the screens, the last command ship exploded. The surviving vessels were fleeing in all directions, their perfect formation shattered, their confidence broken. You have been rulers for so long that you have forgotten what it means to fight for your life, continued. You have had power for so long that you have forgotten what it means to be powerless. But we remember. Every human remembers. It is written in our genes, in our history, in our very souls. She looked directly at Prime. You threatened to destroy our world, to burn our planet to glass, to make an example of us. Her voice was quiet now, but it carried to every corner of the chamber. Did you really think we would not have a response to that threat? Did you really think we would just accept extinction? Prime had no answer. We knew you were watching us, said. We detected your scouts 5 years ago. We could have exposed them. We could have tried to negotiate, but we knew how species like you think. We knew that showing weakness would only invite attack. So instead, we let you see what we wanted you to see. Small ships, weak weapons, a primitive species that posed no threat. You deceived us, said. We survived, that is what we do. Who had been standing silently behind throughout the battle, finally spoke. Ambassador, the battle is over. Admiral reports that the fleet has been destroyed or scattered. Human losses are 11 ships, 231 crew members. 11 ships against 12,000. The numbers hung in the air like a death sentence. 231 humans died today, said softly. They died because you threatened our world. They died because you could not see us as equals. They died because you were too proud to consider that a young species might have value. She looked around the chamber one more time. I will mourn them tonight. I will remember their names. I will make sure their families know they died as heroes. Her voice hardened again. But understand this. If you threaten us again, more will die, yours and ours, and we will keep fighting until one side is destroyed. That is what humans do. That is who we are. She turned and began to walk toward the exit. Wait, called out. Where are you going? Stopped but did not turn around. Back to my ship. This meeting is over. But we have not finished discussing your classification. Now did turn, and there was something cold in her eyes. Yes, we have. We are not Class 7. We are not going to be anyone's protectorate. We are not going to submit or surrender or accept a place at the bottom of your order. Then what do you want? What we always wanted: friendship, trade, peace, a seat at the table with the rest of the galaxy. His expression softened slightly. We did not come here looking for war. We came here looking for a future, but we will not buy that future with our freedom. She started walking again. Tomorrow we can discuss terms, equal terms, between species who respect each other, but tonight I have 231 letters to write. And she walked out of the chamber, leaving the rulers of the galaxy to contemplate what they had learned. The night was long. Sat in her small room on the council station, writing letters to the families of the fallen. 231 letters, 231 names, 231 lives that had ended so that humanity could remain free. She wrote to the mother of a young pilot named who had been only 22 years old. She wrote to the husband of an engineer named who had served on the Unbroken for 15 years. She wrote to the children of a captain named Minu who had stayed at his post until the very end, guiding his damaged ship into a destroyer to save the vessels behind him. Each letter was different. Each one was personal. Each one tried to explain why their loved one had died and why it had mattered. Brought her tea at midnight. He did not speak. He just set the cup down and sat quietly in the corner, keeping her company in the darkness. When the last letter was finished, leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. She felt old, older than her 53 years, older than she had ever felt before. "Do you think it was worth it?" asked softly. "I do not know yet," admitted. "Ask me in 100 years. I might not be around in 100 years. Neither might humanity." She opened her eyes and looked at the young man who had volunteered to travel across the galaxy with her. That is the thing about choices like this. You never know if you did the right thing. You just have to make the best decision you can and live with the consequences. And die with them. Yes, and die with them. The next morning received a message from High Arbiter. He requested a private meeting. No other council members, just the two of them. She agreed. They met in a small garden on the station. It was beautiful, filled with plants from 100 different worlds, flowers that glowed with their own light, trees that sang when the wind touched them, water that flowed upward instead of down. Was waiting for her. His crystalline form seemed dimmer than before somehow, less certain. "You could have warned us," he said without greeting. "You could have shown us your weapons, demonstrated your capabilities. The battle could have been avoided." Sat down on a bench made of something that looked like frozen music. "Would you have believed us?" Was silent for a long moment. "No, we would have assumed it was a bluff, a trick, a deception by a weak species trying to appear strong." "Exactly. Humans learned long ago that the only way to earn respect from those who see you as prey is to become the predator. Just once, just long enough to make them reconsider. And now we can talk, really talk as equals." His form shifted, colors moving through his crystalline body like thoughts. "The council is divided. Some are angry. They are demanding revenge. They lost over 11,000 ships yesterday. It was the worst defeat in their history. I am sorry for that." "Are you?" Considered the question. "I am sorry that it was necessary. I am sorry that good beings on both sides died because of pride and fear. But I am not sorry that we defended ourselves. I will never be sorry for that. They will want war. Then let them come. We will be waiting." His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "We have more ships, more weapons, more soldiers, and we have something they do not have." "What is that?" "Nothing left to lose. Your council pushed us into a corner. You threatened everything we have, everything we are. There is no greater motivation than that." Was quiet again. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, almost curious. "I have lived for 12,000 years. I have seen species rise and fall. I have watched empires burn and civilizations crumble. I thought I understood the universe. And now I think I have been asleep, watching the same patterns repeat over and over. The strong dominate the weak. The old consume the young. The cycle continues forever." He turned to face directly. "But you are different. You break the pattern. We are just survivors, that is all." "No, you are more than that. You are hope." Blinked. That was not what she had expected to hear. "Hope?" "The galaxy has been stagnant for 100,000 years. The same species, the same power structures, the same rules. Nothing changes, nothing grows. We have forgotten what it means to struggle, to fight, to earn our place in the universe." His form brightened slightly. "But you remember, you can remind us." Later that day, the council reconvened. The pedestal was empty. Their representative had fled during the night, returning to the collective to deliver the news of their defeat. The remaining 11 species sat in uncomfortable silence as entered the chamber. High Arbiter rose. The Council has deliberated through the night. We have reviewed the events of yesterday. We have considered our options. He paused. Humanity's Class 7 designation is hereby revoked. Nodded but said nothing. Furthermore, continued, the Council wishes to extend an invitation. We would like humanity to join us, not as a subordinate species, not as a protectorate, as a full member of the Galactic Council, the 13th seat. A murmur ran through the chamber. This had never happened before, a species rising from Class 7 to Council membership in a single day. Stood still for a long moment. She thought about the 231 who had died. She thought about the billions on Earth who were waiting to hear what would happen next. She thought about the future that had seemed so dark just yesterday. We would be honored, she said finally, but we have conditions. Name them. First, the must be restrained. No retaliation against human worlds. No attacks on human ships. If they want war, they will find us ready, but we prefer peace. Agreed, the Council will enforce this. Second, our territory remains ours, all of it. Our colonies, our stations, our people. No restrictions, no limitations. Agreed. Third, we want access to your technology, your libraries, your knowledge. We have a lot of catching up to do. Actually made a sound that might have been a chuckle. You have just proven that your technology is quite effective. But yes, agreed. Knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. Then we accept your invitation. A new pedestal rose from the floor, the 13th seat. It was smaller than the others, simpler, but it was there, a place at the table. Walked to it and stood before it. She did not sit, not yet. We came to the stars looking for wonder, she said, addressing the entire council. Looking for knowledge, looking for friends. We did not come looking for enemies, but we found both. She looked around at the ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy for longer than humanity had existed. We are young, we are imperfect. We have much to learn, but we have something to offer as well. Our curiosity, our determination, our stubborn refusal to give up, even when everything seems hopeless. She sat down on the 13th pedestal. We are humanity, and we are here to stay. Watching from the entrance to the chamber, felt tears in his eyes. He had left Earth as a young man seeking adventure. He was returning as a witness to history. Later, as they prepared to leave the station, he asked one more question. Ambassador, were you scared, even for a moment? She laughed softly. It was the first time he had heard her laugh since they left Earth. I was terrified, from the moment we arrived until the moment the battle ended, every second. You did not show it. That is the secret, Lieutenant. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is being afraid and standing your ground anyway. Every human knows this. It is what makes us who we are. She looked out the window at the stars. So many stars, so many worlds, so much left to discover. They called us the weakest species in the galaxy. They were right about everything except what it means to be weak. The Dawn's hope departed from the Council station, carrying 2 humans back to a world that would never be the same. Behind them, 11 ancient civilizations were learning a lesson they would never forget. Never mistake kindness for weakness. Never mistake patience for submission. And never, ever underestimate humanity. Because humans do not know how to give up. They never have. They never will. And that makes all the difference.